John, how great is this? Adam Schefter joins us on the show. The last time we had Adam, may not remember this, but I remember it well. The last time Adam Schefter was on our show, we were doing radio, and it was the same day he tweeted, the Niners are going to choose between Chip Kelly and Mike Shanahan, and then they chose Chip Kelly.
Wow.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
That wasn't he? Wow, that's amazing. Wow.
Wasn't he on the show and said, "Guys, I have to go"?
Yeah, that's right. And then
one of those, Adam.
That's not the first time that's happened on a radio show, podcast, whatever it may be. It's not the first time I've had to go.
How many text messages on a daily basis, you think?
Just depends on the time of the year. Every day is different.
You text more? I know some old school people still call a lot. Would you consider yourself more of a caller, texter, or has it changed over time?
Texting's so quick, right? Like, just now I was texting with somebody and we were going over an issue on a team and it was an interesting enough issue that all of a sudden the phone rang and it was the guy, and then literally that's why I'm late to call in here, because I was on the phone with that particular individual going over a certain issue that would be of interest to people. So,
I was telling John earlier, I was listening to your podcast last week, the Adam Schefter podcast, which is fantastic because something that I've noticed listening to it is you just say little things that may not be in a tweet. They may not appear on NFL Live. One thing you said last Tuesday, because you tweeted out this long list of quarterbacks, like these guys could be on, just here's everybody that's unsettled. And you put the list at about 10 quarterbacks of guys that are solidly in place. And last Tuesday, you said Jared Goff could be traded. So were you surprised to any degree by that this weekend? You were not.
No. Again, he was on my list of quarterback whose future is in question. And I think all you had to do was listen to the Rams GM Les Snead talk about him. And sometimes it's just little simple things. Now, that there was more to that than just that. But when the GM comes out like that and says what he says publicly, he's our quarterback at this time, on this date, whatever day he did that interview, January, like he might as well just tell you we're moving on from the guy, which they were. So that's what happened. They moved on from him.
I've been asked, because I don't really understand, unless you knew you had a deal in place, and the Stafford deal at the time he said that they didn't, they had a pretty good idea that they would be able to trade him. But at that point in time, like were there other teams interested beside the Lions, you think?
In Stafford
in Goff. In Goff.
That was not as much of a factor in them moving on from him. I think that they just felt like it was time to go a different direction. And whatever direction that was going to be, when they were going to get a new quarterback, if Goff could be a part of it, great. I'm sure they had an idea on Matthew Stafford that they'd like to go after him. I'm sure there are other quarterbacks. But by the way, there are teams that are interested in Deshaun Watson. There have been these questions about Aaron Rodgers. There's a lot of quarterbacks out there that have question marks. So I think the Rams just knew that they were going to be making calls on somebody else. And I don't think that they were confident that Jared Goff was going to be their quarterback in 2021, period. And so they didn't know what direction it was going to go, how it was going to take shape. But they knew that they were in the market to go see what else they could do. And obviously they moved pretty quick, as you saw.
The 49ers have not said anything like anywhere close to what the kinds of things the Rams said. What would be your read right now on Jimmy Garoppolo's security in terms of being the quarterback for the 49ers next season?
I think that they are where they were last year. I think they like Jimmy. I think they're good with Jimmy. I think that they wouldn't look around and see what's out there, I think that would probably be naive. I think you investigate these things. You see what else is out there. And if something can happen or something can come along, okay, and you can make it work, then, and if it's worth it and it makes your team better, you look at that. And if not, I don't think they have any problem riding with Jimmy Garoppolo going forward. But it's just a question of what's available, who's available, at what cost, what makes your team better, what's the best option. Are they better with Jimmy Garoppolo? Would they be better off trading a player or two, or a pick or two, or a combination of picking a player? So there's a lot of factors there that go into it.
Okay, let's go through a couple players. Matt Ryan, what would you say his status is with the organization?
I believe he'll be back for right now. I think he gets a year there. I think they let him finish up with a new coach and a new GM, get another year into his contract to where the numbers become more palatable. And at that point in time, I think this gives him time to bring in another quarterback.
Kirk Cousins.
There's been this Kirk Cousins talk, and I guess something could happen, but I haven't heard that that's the case, so I don't know where that's coming from.
It's coming from, I think, probably Kyle's long, I'll say love affair. I mean, Kyle has even said they didn't watch the Mahomes Deshaun draft class because they thought maybe Kirk would become available.
But again, what's happened in the last few weeks that all of a sudden Kirk Cousins is a part of this conversation?
Probably the Niners not getting Stafford. I mean, that's where it creates at least a Twitter conversation, whether that's real or not.
Look, anything's always possible, but Kirk Cousins redid his deal last summer.
I know.
He's sort of what's that?
I don't necessarily believe it. I'm just saying it's kind of out there right now. It's something,
and that's what I'm saying. You keep saying it's kind of out there, and I'm saying, where is it out there? What
internet, Twitter, social media.
What does that mean? I don't. I know. Who's reporting? Is it credible?
That's why I'm asking you.
I have not heard anything about Kirk Cousins being available. As Aaron Rodgers himself said, the great philosopher Aaron Rodgers, there are no absolutes in the league. Anything's possible, but I have not heard anything about Kirk Cousins being available this offseason. We'll see if anything changes.
Vegas, Derek Carr.
I don't know. It seems like it's a question that comes up every year with him.
Yeah.
And I think John Gruden has perpetual quarterback wanderlust, but Derek Carr's played pretty well for them. So I don't know the answer to that one.
And then
Tua?
I guess the last one, Tua. It's a good one.
Who the Dolphins bring in. I think it's not unlike Jimmy Garoppolo. They like their guy. If the Houston Texans came to them and said, hey, what would you give us for Deshaun Watson? Would they talk about it? I think they would. You'd be crazy not to. And so don't think that's happening right now, but that's where it's at.
One player that Sam Darnold, the new coach, Robert Saleh, he refuses to name a starter, which is, I would say, a little weird given the circumstances. Is it fair to say that he might be on the move?
Well, why would Robert Saleh have to name a starter? He's never seen Sam Darnold play.
True, but I mean, he's the number 3 overall pick. He's been their full-time starter since he showed up.
We don't need Robert Saleh to say that he's the starter to know that the Jets quarterback options are wide open. So him saying that Sam Darnold is a starter would lock himself into a corner that he doesn't want to be locked into. Sam Darnold might be their starter, but I can tell you this. The Jets are going to look around at their options. Why wouldn't they? Of course they are. So Robert Saleh is not going to say this guy's the starter. Sam Darnold, even as the number 3 pick, even as much potential, he hasn't done enough to prove that we're handing him the starting job right now. He hasn't done that. Right?
So, I would agree, but, let's think a couple years ago when Kingsbury got there with Rosen, he basically lied. Right, said that Rosen was going to be their quarterback, and then they went. Saleh, we've been around him and followed him pretty closely. I think he's uncomfortable lying. Like he could easily say that, even if they weren't going to do that. And it does feel like Sam Darnold's probably not on their team next year. Is that fair?
I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that they're going to look at every option, and like the Niners and like the Dolphins, they're going to do what's best for them. Do I think that Sam Darnold's going to be there? He might. He might not. I will not be surprised if he's not, but I don't know that he won't.
What would he fetch, you think? Does he get a first rounder if they make him available?
Depends on the level of interest, and it depends on how the quarterback chairs fall. So if all of a sudden there were a bunch of teams in on Matthew Stafford and they look at Sam Darnold and they say, we really like this guy. Do I think they're getting a top 10 pick for Sam Darnold? No. Do I think that they could get a first-round pick, a later first-round pick? Yes. Now, again, let's use Carolina as an example because they were linked to Matthew Stafford. Carolina's got the 8th pick in the draft. Do I think that they would trade the 8th pick for Sam Darnold? No. So maybe they trade the 8th pick to the Jets. And this, it's not going to happen. I'm just giving you an example.
No, I know.
Talking about maybe they trade the 8th pick and then the Jets send them back their second first round pick so that the Jets go up to 8, but then there's some sort of offset there. Again, Sam Darnold, in my mind, I know people will say, no way. They'll say he's not worth a first-round pick. I headed into the offseason thinking that they would get a second-round pick and maybe something else for him. I thought that would be his value if they decided to trade him. I think with all the movement going on, I think with what Matthew Stafford went for, I think that his value in the end, if they trade him, will be some sort of late one. That's my sense and belief.
So, I mean, we talk about Deshaun a lot, and, there was a discussion after Stafford got traded as to whether or not that trade affects in any way Deshaun's value, if it raises his value. But that was pretty unique. It had a lot of money in Goff going back. I guess there's two parts to this, right, Adam? One, are the Texans, you think, committed to trying to get him to return?
Yes.
And they are. Okay. So you would have to blow them away with an offer. And what does that mean? Does that mean 3 ones and 2 players, or?
Here's the Texans just aren't there today. They're just not there today. So again, a team can try to make an offer, but they think, right or wrong, they think Deshaun's their quarterback. I don't agree with them today, but that's their quarterback and that's their opinion. And there was this great curiosity after the Stafford move. Okay, well, who's next? And when's this happening with Deshaun? They are not on the same tracks. They're not on parallel tracks. They're not running at the same speed. Stafford and the Lions had agreed to go their own separate ways. With Deshaun Watson, he wants to be traded, and the Houston Texans don't want to trade him. So the dance plays out, and let's see how it goes. I mean, we'll see.
I think 2 teams that were closely connected, fair or not, with Stafford were the Niners and the Colts. But the big difference, as we talked about with the Niners, they have Jimmy under contract. They just have a fallback plan no matter what, a guy that helped them get to a Super Bowl. The Colts, Rivers retires. Jacoby's a free agent. I know Jacob Eason's saying that he could be the starter or whatever, but what about Andrew Luck? I mean, once upon a time, you broke the story. Andrew Luck was retiring. They continued to pay him, right? Or they didn't ask for the bonus money back. Yeah. Has there ever been conversation about trying to get him to come back? I don't know if you would know. Do you think he ever has interest in coming back? Is that even an option, or is that something just water under the bridge? It's over. They're looking forward.
It's a great question, John. What I would say is that there's always fascination with these guys. You heard stories about whether Calvin Johnson would come back, Barry Sanders would come. Whenever an athlete walks away like that, the way that Andrew did, I think people are always waiting and curious. Now, I'm not telling you that he won't ever come back, but the indication I've gotten from the Colts, the times that it has come up, it hasn't come up recently, but they've said he's retired. They've said he's retired at this time. But people go through life and their priorities change and their circumstances change, and I don't know what Andrew's situation is, but I have not heard to date the conversation of him coming back. Again, sorry to do this. To quote the great philosopher Aaron Rodgers, there are no absolutes. Anything's always possible. Because I don't want to say, he's not coming back, and then 6 months from now, I don't know that he is coming back. I haven't heard.
From a football standpoint, they are pretty well equipped if he was interested to kind of slide right back in and hit the ground running.
That team was built to win a Super Bowl with Andrew Luck.
I know.
And they're still paying the price for him. Not his fault at all. Like, they were built to win the Super Bowl with him, and now they need to figure out how to get a quarterback, whoever that quarterback is.
You keep quoting the great philosopher Aaron Rodgers. Did what he say after the Packers loss surprise you? Was there more to it than, he went on with McAfee a couple days later and everything kind of smoothed over, but you can't deny that what he says is built on 2 things, right? The history of the league and the experience that he had. He's had the shoe on the other foot. He's been the Aaron Rodgers to Brett Favre, and now he's the Brett Favre. Is there? I don't know. Did that surprise you that Aaron said that? Is that in your mind something that's been simmering with him, or is it just what he said, just simply the way life is?
I thought it was pretty revealing that he'd come out and speak like that. I think it got everybody's attention. Now, he walked it back some with Pat the next day and seemed to try to minimize it, but clearly there are feelings that he has, and I think there are feelings that certain people in the Packers organization have. So. Look, he's one of the best players in all of football. Not just best players. And as I like to say, they didn't just draft a quarterback, they traded up to draft a quarterback. I don't think that sat well, and it's a reflection of how certain people felt about him and vice versa. And so I think that as much as they say he's our quarterback. We want him back. And I believe all that. You can't deny that there's just clear sailing in that relationship. Like there are some issues there, like there aren't any other relationship.
Does money fix that?
Never know, right? Sometimes it does.
You know, the NFL works on a timeline, and typically once the combine hits, then I think news starts breaking about potential trades, veterans getting moved, all that type of stuff. We're off that timeline because the combine isn't going to happen, and the Stafford thing, first domino. Do you expect a lot more stuff to happen maybe once the Super Bowl ends right away, or is this hard to tell?
Well, again, people are spoiled on the Stafford story. Like it happens, the Alex Smith trade happened on that exact day 3 years ago. And even though the calendar has been blurred and dates have vanished, there's usually not a lot of activity in late January, early February in terms of trades. There's a lot of planning, plotting, strategizing. And we may get another quarterback move here in the next week or so. I mean, that's always possible. It could come at any time. But I'm not aware at this time of anything being imminent as we speak. Could that change? You know what the great philosopher says.
Well, we appreciate your time. We'll go watch you on NFL Live. Something could happen. Last time we talked to you, something happened 10 minutes later. So.
Well, hey, this story of my life. You could say it was almost a lot of conversations I have. Something happens 10 minutes after a lot of conversations I have.